Welcome, everybody. My name is Todd Keirstead, and you are watching TK Talks, stories of inspiration both on and off the golf course. Today, I have a very near and dear friend of mine, Colonel Cary Harbaugh. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing great, Todd. Always happy to be with you and happy to see you.
Awesome. So you served in the military for 41 years. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, the family history and about your time in the military?
Well, in my family, it's what we do. I think I've told you privately. We consider ourselves like Lieutenant Dan and Forrest Gump. We all serve, but fortunately, we don't die like Lieutenant Dan's family.
Right.
It was always what I wanted to be. I grew up that way. I got pictures as a little kid that running around in all the Army gear. Had uncles and grandfathers, and my father was kind of in a slot period between wars, so he never got the chance to serve. And my family, most of them just served, in the military for short periods, and they served during times of war. All the way back to the American Revolution, I have an 8 times great-grandfather who was an officer during the Revolutionary War, served in both Valley Forge as well as in the Southern campaigns. And I have, in fact, in my office here, I have my great-great-great-grandfather's saddlebag map from the Civil War. He was a captain with Sherman's cavalry, and it's his March to the Sea map. So it's kind of neat history. So when the time came, I graduated high school in '76. Went to a college I didn't necessarily want to go to. Kind of got compelled because I had a great scholarship offer. So I got a lot of family pressure to go. And I stole away after 2 years and snuck away and enlisted, which was the best thing I could have done. And then served 10 years as an enlisted guy, non-commissioned officer in airborne and special operations units. And then after a lot, again, family pressure, made the transition to an officer. And I did 30 plus years in special operations again in airborne forces, and moved into the special operations intelligence world in particular. And then an extra year, because the final 6.5, almost 7 years of my career, I got the honor of serving as the director of the Wounded Warrior Program for Special Operations Command. And the program had helped me out when I got messed up. So it was near and dear to my heart. And I was honored by Admiral McCraven, who was commander at the time, asked me to take that over. And then we were closing in on running Warrior Games, which was a real capper to my career. For 2019, and I hit my 40-year absolute maximum. It's rare to even go over 30. And what I did was, I asked, and my commander at the time, General Tony Thomas, who's a good friend and a golf partner and a member of our foundation board that we'll talk about here in a little bit, he sought out the Chief of Staff of the Army, actually the current chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Mark Milley. And General Milley got his guys to approve it because the lawyers weren't too thrilled about giving this old soldier an extra year, but I got the extra year and I did 41 years that way.
That's awesome.
2019, a nice long haul.
Absolutely, it was for you. Now you started golf at a very, very early age, and it's always been a part of your life.
Yeah, very, very young, 4 or 5 years old. I remember the Golf Channel was airing fairly frequently a thing about Seve Ballesteros, and it really reminded me of me from the standpoint of obviously not the Spanish upbringings in the farm, but lived out in Ohio and Pennsylvania, kind of bopped around with my father in the different jobs that he took over his life, and I started off with an old great grandfather's club out of the garage and some balls that I found in there, and just hitting in the backyard, and keep doing that. And I'd always play. I'd build holes for myself and put little flag sticks in, and I'd hit at them, and I just got great. I can remember when I got a steel shafted club for the first time with a rubber grip, and how cool I thought that was. It was a 7-iron, and I think it was like out of my great-grandmother and my grandmother's set, and it was a Babe Zaharias, just think about that. And so, playing it that way. And then I started caddying when I was 11 at the local country club, and that got me even deeper into the game. And I played competitively in high school and then in college and into the military, and won a couple of base championships at Fort Bragg and Fort Huachuca. And then was on some winning golf teams as well. And so, it was just something I've always kept, and I love the game. I mean, I play every day if I could. My career didn't always allow that, but I'd play every day if I could. And right now, in the sort of semi-retirement or whatever you call what I'm doing now, I definitely try to.
That's awesome. Now, speaking of the Golf Channel, you and I were participating in the 2019 Jan Stevenson Veteran Day Golf Tournament. And you and I were having breakfast. I looked up to the screen of the Golf Channel, and there you were in Ireland as part of a program that was happening there.
Yeah. Ireland, we've been running a retreat through a couple of different benevolent organizations, but primarily run by a great patriot, Tom Gates, who is actually the vice chairman of our Special Operations Warrior Golf Foundation for me. And he'd been running this event. He was a Vietnam veteran, been a fighter pilot, F-4 Phantom fighter pilot, 2 Distinguished Flying Crosses in Vietnam, and just a great patriot. And then he had a full career in the FBI, and he'd started a little tour company after he'd retired, a golf tour company. And he has ties to Ireland, just as I do. My mother's family is from County Clare, and I spent a lot of time in Ireland. I just, really, really love it's in the blood. It's both father and mother's side, but my mother's side more in the 1930s made the transition to the U.S. So, it was an important place. So I got involved in going to those. I was invited and would go out to see how the Wounded Warriors were doing. And then as I moved into retirement, got more steeped in it. And that particular filming was done to showcase the guy who's now the executive director of our Soft Warrior Golf Foundation, Mike Morales, a Green Beret, was badly injured in combat and has used golf because he had grown up playing the game too and loved it, and has used golf to help him heal. I noticed throughout not only the Warrior Games preparation, Invictus, because I had also campaigned hard to get golf added to Invictus, things that Jan Stevenson was doing with her Crossroads Foundation and training, and I know Jan's a close and a mutual friend of yours. The involvement in so much of how golf with PGA Hope, Ken June, who's a dear friend, we lost him to cancer right after the Warrior Games, and Dave Windsor, so much going on there to use the game of golf to help the guys heal. And what we wanted to do with Ireland was showcase how it was being done in a very special place. Obviously, that one was picked up for coverage because the Open was being played at Royal Portrush. This was an opportunity to show how not only the environment of Ireland, how the game of golf is helping our guys come back to life. And that's frankly, that was the driving force behind us creating the Special Operations Warrior Golf Foundation.
That's amazing. Now, I was heavily involved in the Invictus Games when they were in Toronto in 2017. What was that like for you hosting the D&D Warrior Games in Tampa in 2019? It's an incredible undertaking.
Yeah, it was. And, the fact is it's a tremendous honor to be able to do it, obviously to have led it as the director. But more so, it was just a phenomenal team that I had around me, and the support that we had not only out of our the brother and sister service programs, the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, but also our international partners, include Canada, that really got into the game. I'd been involved with Warrior Games from really the start of Warrior Games, nearly the start of it. Certainly start of the DoD version of it. I was at the last version of the one that we had done out at Colorado Springs, and then move forward all the way through the one that they did in Colorado Springs, hosted by the Air Force. And then, of course, we took it over to run the 2019 games. And also, it goes back to golf. We added golf at Invictus with a little bit of pressure on the Invictus committee. I'd been to all the Invictus games from the first one in London in 2012 on, and involved in the planning for those, to include the most that I was involved was the Orlando games in 2016, but I was up at the 2017 games as well. And we had, in fact, special operators medal in golf there at the Invictus games in Toronto. So having the chance to run it in Tampa, General Thomas and I were sitting courtside the 2017 games in Chicago, and he goes, "Cary, what keeps us from hosting a Warrior game?" And I said, "You." And he goes, "What do you mean me?" And I said, "You got to say yes." And he said, "Well, what do you think?" And we talked about it, and we knew we were bringing it to the right community in the Tampa Bay area. That's just, it's rich with veterans and active duty military. It's incredibly patriotic and supportive, and that we could do the game the right way. And the other thing was that the games had been starting to get a lot of scrutiny at the Department of Defense level, concerns about the cost of the games. Because it was coming to the point where each of the games would have been able to buy a house for the cost for every one of the Warriors that was coming to the game, would be able to buy them their own home. And that's how high the prices had gone. And it was like, well, how about we bring it in the community and get the community to do it Olympic style, to allow the cost to reduce by them hosting us. And that's kind of what we drove. I mean, there was some cost to it, but we did our game for roughly $4.6 million compared to the previous year, which reached 30. So we were able to show a really good model. That's been adopted by the Department of Defense now. The Marine Corps is supposed to have hosted this year's game in San Antonio, and San Antonio was very much following the Tampa model of how they host and do things at low to no cost in order to keep the cost down, make it a great event, and as well involve the community. And that's the steps we're taking forward. And I think we're getting postponed to 21, obviously due to COVID. But it's a model that's sustainable now to keep Warrior Games, which our wounded warriors desperately need.
Now, what's going on in the future now for the Special Operations Warrior Golf Foundation?
Primarily, it's getting it running. We've got a phenomenal board of directors because our organization is somewhat unique. What we did in forming it, and it was kind of falls back to my Warrior Care program with SOCOM, which is called the Care Coalition, a coalition of people who care, was to get organizations involved in that way. And so our board is comprised of members and leaders of other benevolent organizations that support special operations wounded warriors. So, for instance, on my board, not only myself as chairman, Tom Gates, as I mentioned, as a vice chairman, got Art Wohlholter, who is a great American, former Marine JAG. He's our secretary treasurer, a distinguished gentleman with a great business resume as well. We've got General Tony Thomas, our former commander of USSOCOM, who is the chairman of Special Operations Warrior Foundation that takes care of Gold Star families, in particular scholarships for Gold Star kids. That's kids of the fallen. We've got Command Sergeant Major retired Pat McCauley, our former senior enlisted leader for USSOCOM, on that board. Jan Stevenson, World Golf Hall of Famer, again, as I previously mentioned, a mutual friend of ours with Crossroads Foundation that does adaptive golf. We've got Larry and Sam Rea from Homes Fit for Heroes that provides an outlet for guys when they're in guys and their families, for wounded warriors and their families when they're in protracted medical care. And it provides luxury quality housing for them as they're in these detached locations from their actual geography that is home. We have Gary Markell, who is the founder and a great business leader himself of Operation Healing Forces that does retreats for marriage retreats for our special operators and their wives. We have the Scott Bill from the Brian Bill Foundation, a Gold Star father himself from a Navy SEAL, and his son Brian Bill. And Brian Bill Foundation runs post-traumatic stress retreats and other therapeutic events for not only the wounded warrior, but also for their spouses and families. So a phenomenal collage of folks that have been brought together into this organization, along with leaders in the golf community, like Dave Windsor, obviously Jan in her other capacity as a World Golf Hall of Famer, Dave Windsor from Adaptive Golf, and we oddly enough recruited you to be on that board too. So it's people that understand the game of golf and its power and what it can do for our guys, and then bringing in assets and resources by having a board that has that formation. In addition to that, because of the medical care on our board is as our program quality overseer is Dr. Colleen Jakey, dear personal friend of mine because she's helped me through some medical crises of my own, but also she is the chief of staff of the Haley VA Hospital, which is deeply involved in a program that primarily focuses on our special operations wounded warriors dealing with traumatic brain injury and other injuries, called the PrEP program, the Post-Deployment Rehabilitation and Evaluation Program. And between her and Steve Scott, Dr. Steve Scott, Dr. Brian Merritt, who are the ones who really drive and run that program, but she provides us that access for our guys who are being cared for within our foundation from the standpoint of getting them out for these retreats and assessing what their needs may be of getting them to VA healthcare if they're eligible. So it's a really neat constellation of folks that are built into this organization. Then what we're doing is we're running retreats. It's get the guys out for a week-long retreat. Business leaders as mentor benefactors that come out and host 2 special operations wounded warriors on the golf course, spending a week with them, not only playing the game of golf, but also, sharing a meal, sharing a beer, getting to know one another and figuring out how we can help them as they make that transition into new careers, how we can help them better with their therapies that may be required or access to resources. And that's really what makes those retreats hum, and doing them in phenomenal venues, because we're already looking at, we're going to return to Waterville. That will be an annual event. We'll do that in Ireland, but we're also looking at other places in the world that are willing to host us, as well as other places in the United States. I mean, we've got Whistling Straits showing interest in us, Pinehurst, and some other great locations, French Lick, all that would be phenomenal venues for these guys to get out and really appreciate the game at its best.
So you've really seen how golf has helped out our servicemen and women all over the world in not only their recovery, but their reintegration back into the society.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that all of us that play the game, and obviously I'm anticipating that most of your viewers are in fact people that play the game and love the game, know that it has a spiritual component to it, an emotional component to it. Certainly sometimes those emotions come to boil when you're playing the game because you get frustrated with yourself, but also you have to focus and concentrate. As if you ever toggle into Mike Morales' video, that video you mentioned on Golf Channel, and it's on our page for Special Ops Warrior Golf Foundation, which is down right now for some maintenance, but it'll be back up and running soon, and people can get on their SOWGF.org. And you can see that video, and you can see how Mike's used the game of golf to heal. And, you know, that focus, the concentration, the repetition, those are all things that are helpful, especially when your brain's been damaged by blast or, you know, other in his case, not only blast, but also by penetration of shrapnel. So those elements of the game, the social elements of the game, the fact that you're engaged with not only your friends and colleagues, you make new friends. You know, one of my wounded warriors made this comment. He said that you play a round of golf with somebody, you make a friend for life. He never got that out of a spin class. And that's just fact. I mean, just the way the game is. I mean, almost always you come off the golf course and you're setting the date for the next time to get on the golf course with that same set of guys, or you're making contacts to do so at some other time, or getting invited to their club or what have you. So it's something special about the game of golf that does that. And as well, when it came to the career transition aspects, and one of the reasons the foundation has that transition spin to it, it's that so many business leaders and people involved in society that make things happen are also involved in the game of golf. And it's, you know, getting them out, enticing them to get involved with these guys by using a sport that is that enticement, but also then being able to see what these guys bring to bear by virtue of getting to know them better.
Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is what TK Talks is all about, sharing stories of inspiration both on and off the golf course. Colonel Harbaugh, it was such a pleasure having you on today. I really look forward to being a part of the board and helping out as many people as we can with the foundation.
Well, we're honored to have you with us, Todd, and thank you so much for the support. I think our foundation has got great promise and strides. Obviously, we got to get through this COVID thing. We were wanting, I think, as we were talking privately off camera, the concern that we have right now is that we don't look like we're the Oblivious Foundation asking people to support us for golf retreats while we've got a lot of families that are suffering and that have had tremendous loss. We respect that. We hope that we can get through this and all rebound and get back to life. And I think golf will help us all get back to life.
I love it, sir. Well, listen, you have a great game of golf today, and I do look forward to talking to you very, very soon.
Thanks, Todd. Take care.